My best friend asked me to ask her out? I had a friend who was very close to me. We were always together, and I had a crush on her. I thought she felt the same because she was always giving me signs. One time, she told my other friends to let me know that she had feelings for me. That day, my friends spent the whole time pressuring me to ask her out. I told them I needed to take things slow without their pressure, because rushing things could mess up our relationship. That was just my excuse because, at that moment, I didn't have enough courage. The next day, I had already planned to ask her out after classes ended. But during the second class, she came up to me and asked me to ask her out during recess. I couldn't understand what was going on because she was literally asking me to ask her out. Like, what sense does that make? I thought about it all class. But for me, it was fine since I was going to ask her out anyway. So I gathered my courage to do it. When recess was almost over, I went to the designated spot to ask her out. She was there, along with 3 other friends from another class. I got super embarrassed because I was very shy back then. Still, I went to ask her out. I entered the room and saw it was packed with people, making me even more nervous, but I kept going. Then she asked me to kneel down and make the proposal in a romantic way. I did it and asked her to be my girlfriend in front of everyone. I asked the person I liked the most, even being shy, in front of a lot of people I didn't even know. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. Seconds felt like hours and I was dying inside. That's when the bomb dropped. On the day I was most confident and happy, knowing that the girl I liked felt the same about me, everything turned into one of my worst days ever. After I proposed, there was about 3 seconds of silence, and then, unexpectedly, she said "no." I stood paralyzed for 5 seconds, not understanding what was happening. I was in complete shock. Then I noticed her friends and everyone else in the room laughing at me. I'd never gone through anything like that before. I was betrayed by my best friend, the same person who said she had feelings for me and told me to ask her out. I was desperate and didn't know what to do. How could someone do something like that? I would have accepted it if I had asked her out after class, and she said no. But she was the one who told me to ask her out during recess. She was the one who basically asked me to be her boyfriend. What did she gain from this? Seeing her walk out of the room after rejecting me, I could only feel anger and disdain toward her. I swore never to talk to her again. The worst part of it all was that her friends were recording the whole spectacle, and I had no idea. Some girls from another class saw everything and immediately went to delete the video from their phones. They were the only ones who didn't laugh at me and helped me a lot. They managed to delete the video. She probably would have posted it somewhere to humiliate me even more. I don't know why she did all that to me. I've always been decent looking but also pretty naive. Back then, there was another girl in my class who liked me. She was the smartest in the class and very nice to me, but I was too shy to approach her. Well, after that day, my ex-friend skipped 2 whole weeks of school. When she returned, I completely ignored her. She kept trying to get my attention, acting like nothing had happened. When the school year ended, I moved to a new school and a new house. I hardly ever saw her again, only occasionally on the street, but I never even looked her in the eye. This was my first story in this community, but I have many crazy and depressing stories to share. So, I'll probably post more stories here in the future. Next story. I was in a relationship with a narcissist, and it left me broken. Only now am I starting to understand things better. M29. I ended my last relationship about 4 months ago, and I came out completely shattered. She was someone I had liked from the very first moment. We met at the beginning of the pandemic, and although we flirted a lot, she was kind of entangled with another guy, so I decided to stay out of it to avoid getting hurt. Almost a year later, we were both single, we met at a party, hooked up, and from that point I started seeing her. We dated for about 10 months, meeting up regularly, until I asked her to be my girlfriend. We had so much in common. Our personal tastes seemed to align perfectly. Or so I thought. At the beginning, everything was amazing. She was a very confident person who cared a lot about her image, both in real life and online. Because of that, I obviously felt good about being with her. She treated me extremely well in the beginning and told me things that, according to her, she had never told anyone. She made me feel like the best person in the world, and she was very good at it. When she talked, It was like listening to a celebrity being interviewed. Even the smallest things she shared seemed so fascinating. I was captivated by all of it and fell for her more and more. We went on 2 incredible international trips and created so many memories. But after a few months of dating, I started to notice small behaviors that hurt me. I tried to bring them up a few times, but I was always made out to be the one in the wrong, as if I had no valid point. After a while, I just gave up and kept quiet. In my mind, I kept finding excuses for everything. I was already losing my sense of self without realizing it. Eventually, being with her felt like walking on eggshells. Everything I said, every action I took, was calculated down to the smallest detail to avoid upsetting her. She was always dealing with a million things, and I tried to be understanding. I didn't matter, only she did. My problems were irrelevant. I no longer felt loved, and whenever I started to consider leaving the relationship, she would do something that made me question my frustration, convincing me that she really did care about me. One day, I decided to bring up an issue. She had been talking about moving abroad but didn't include me in her plans. I decided to address it because it made no sense to stay in a relationship with someone who didn't consider me in such a major decision. We ended the relationship after that conversation. I was told that she didn't have time for me anymore, that she didn't see me taking initiative, that I lacked ambition, that I had too much to deal with and wouldn't be able to go with her, etc., etc., etc. I was left devastated, blaming myself for everything. Despite that, I still tried to stay close to her. She, of course, kept throwing crumbs my way to keep me around. On the day we broke up, she hugged me while crying and said I'd always be her best friend. I clung to that. I've been in therapy for a few years, and I talked a lot with my therapist before getting into this relationship. I knew there was a chance it could end at some point. Things end, that's normal. So right after the breakup, I scheduled a session, and we started working through everything. After about 2 months, I started to find myself again. Taking care of myself, figuring out what I liked instead of what she liked. I began to understand my actions and realized that I wasn't to blame for everything that happened. I still tried to stay close to her, or rather, I tried to stay near her. One day, we ran into each other at a party. Despite talking to me almost every day, she treated me very poorly. When we were in a group, she barely looked at me, wouldn't meet my eyes, didn't treat me like a human being. At the end of the party, I decided to ask her why she was acting that way. She ordered an Uber and left in the middle of the conversation. Later, she told a mutual friend that I had raised my voice and embarrassed her in public. That was the breaking point. I went from being someone she said she wanted to marry to someone she seemed to want to completely destroy. I felt emptied out, like I was just an object. This week, I was on a work trip and spoke with a coworker who is a PhD in psychology and spent the last year studying narcissistic personality disorder. I explained my relationship to her, and she broke down action by action how narcissistic individuals interact with others. In her words, they basically operate on a different system. But yes, everything that happened and how I felt were the natural results of being in a relationship with a narcissist. It's nothing personal or moral, it's just how they are. Obviously, I'm not diagnosing anyone, but based on my experience, conversations with a trusted professional, and what I've read and researched, this is what I dealt with. That conversation was extremely important to me. After all this time, I finally deleted a photo of us from my Instagram profile. Yes, I couldn't even delete a simple photo before. I read a quote that resonated deeply during all of this. It's very hard to identify a narcissist if you don't know who you are before starting a relationship. My focus lately has been rediscovering who I am. I decided to write this because I've been visiting this subreddit more often and wanted to contribute in case someone is in the same situation or has gone through it. Remember, you're not to blame for everything, and you are valuable and important. Take care, everyone. Stay well. Did you enjoy these stories? What's your opinion about them? I'd really appreciate it if you liked, subscribed, and shared my channel. Hope to see you in the next video. Do you like to read? If so, check the link in the description. There's a great book recommendation for you there. See you next time.